Well, thank you all for being here. I know this came together pretty quickly. We wanted to make sure we can get everybody here. I'm Mayor Andy Shore, if you don't know that, and we're here to talk about the last week and efforts that are going on in general. I wrote some comments out, but it was in frustration. I am tremendously sick of illegal guns, and they're everywhere. And the fact that people use them to solve their arguments it's just terrible. It used to be, and as the layman here, as we've got our police, we've got our prosecutor, we've got our pastors, we've got advanced peace. As the layman here, in my mind, when we were young, people got into fights, they got disrespected, they had their basketball stolen, and they get into fights, and it wasn't good, but it was very rarely fatal. And now, there are so many guns on the street that everybody's just picking up guns and shooting. Yesterday we had, gunshots because they got into a fight over a basketball. It's out of control. These illegal guns are all over the place. They're too easy to get by those that would do harm. We take hundreds of guns off of our street every year with our violent crime initiative. We will continue in Lansing our three-step process. We will continue prevention, giving tons of parks programs for youth and giving money to those that engage our youth. I was just at a barbecue over the weekend on the west side, and I had someone tell me we need more things for our youth to do because when they're bored they get into trouble. And we're going to continue to do that. We put a lot of money into it. We have a gun violence task force that's working on it. We are going to continue to do that. We are going to continue and increase our steps with intervention. In my State of the City, I talked about how great Advanced Peace is. We went 4 months without a homicide. Our Advanced Peace initiative, it's working. It is getting in and it's turning kids around who have started out the wrong way and turning them around. We need to do more. We need to do more. And we will. When we have certain kids that have gone down that wrong path, we absolutely will do more. And we're going to support others like Mike McKissick and Mikey 23. We're going to support others that are doing programming. Pray, Terrence Cooper came in and said, let's get some gym space and get some basketball. Let's get our kids, learning trades. We're going to keep doing all of that. And we're going to do enforcement. I can't stress enough that we hear, if someone gets caught with a gun outside of Lansing, then there's going to be real consequences. But in Lansing, there won't be. That is untrue, and I want to make sure everybody out there knows it. If you have an illegal gun, we're sending it to the prosecutor. We are letting the prosecutor know. We are not leaving you on the street with illegal guns. We are going to take action. Know that whether you are in Eaton County or Clinton County or Ingham County, City of Lansing, having an illegal gun, don't bother, because it is not going to go well for you. We have a great police force who are doing their job, doing an incredible job. But I also encourage everybody out there, if you see something, say something. Let us know. If you have a camera, a Ring device, send it to us. We want to know. We have to get the information to get people off the street who would do harm with illegal guns. We will work with the prosecutor. We will work with the sheriff. Again, Advanced Peace is trying to prevent it. And then our clergy friends are our partners in making sure that everything is done the right way. Before I turn this over to Chief Sosby, I want to thank two individuals, Chris and Elise Murphy. I mentioned this, but this is a couple who on the west side in June, they had 21 bullets hit their house when someone was trying to shoot at someone down the street. And they were afraid, and they channeled that into positivity. They brought the community together. They brought in food. We went and spoke, and we talked to them about how we can all work together. They brought neighbors together. We need all of our citizens engaged and together and helping. And I appreciate that. They turned that pain into positivity. And that's what we need. We need to all be in this together. With that, I want to bring up Lansing Police Chief Ellery Sosby. But I should probably introduce who's here. We have Sheriff Wigglesworth, the Ingham County Sheriff. We have Paul Elam, who is with MPHI but is leading our Advanced Peace effort. We have Bishop Singleton. We have Pastor Milton, both who are very involved in many of these things, both within the clergy and within the city. And then we have Prosecutor Duane and Chief Sosby. So I'm going to ask Chief Sosby to say a few words, then we're going to ask the prosecutor to say a few words.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you all for coming and giving us an opportunity to give some case update on the recent week that we had here in the City of Lansing. The Mayor already introduced everybody, but I want to acknowledge a few more people in the room. Delisa Fontaine is here, Kim Coleman, Willard Walker, Fire Chief Stuart Avant. Thank you for being here and be supportive of this effort. I first want to give my condolences to the families of those who have lost a loved one this past 10 days. Every life is precious, we know that. Any life lost is tragic and unnecessary, especially at the hands of gun violence. So I'll get into the case updates right now. July 30th, 3200 block of South MLK, we had an incident with 5 victims shot around 1 a.m. At the conclusion of an event that was advertised as being a 13 and up event. 2 of the victims were seriously injured, but are expected to survive. Victims ranged in age of 15 to 26 years old. 2 suspects were developed based on the neighborhood witnesses. Both are 26-year-olds. It is believed that people came to the location as a fight developed. Evidence collected from the crime scene will need to be evaluated by our crime scene investigators, media techs, and crime labs. This case has many complications due to the lack of on-scene witnesses and cooperation, and victim cooperation, and lack of first-hand knowledge. One of the suspects was arrested on outstanding charges, and the other one was released at this time. LPD is taking follow-up action against the venue that hosted this event for violations found at the scene. Multiple firearms were located at that scene, and we are very optimistic that we'll be able to charge the subjects, all subjects involved, after we have analyzed all the evidence from that incident. July 30th, 700 block of East Kalamazoo, a homicide. Group of 6 juveniles in a stolen vehicle approached victims walking on the sidewalk. The accused shot up the group, striking and killing one of the victims. Following that event, at 10:30 p.m. the same day, that same group went to the 200 block of Everdale under the guise of a peaceful conversation about the prior conflict. The victim in that case was shot and seriously injured. As the vehicle was leaving, it was spotted by a patrol officer. After a short pursuit, all were taken into custody. The shooters from the Kalamazoo homicide were identified at that time. The Everdale shooting is related and will be charged after additional follow-up. A 16-year-old and a 17-year-old will be charged with the Kalamazoo homicide. August 3rd, 3200 block of Forest Road homicide. The victim in this case called to help a family member in a domestic situation. When he arrived, the conflict escalated, and he, as well as the second victim, were shot while leaving the scene. The accused in this case was located and arrested at the scene. Multiple witnesses were on that scene. Multiple firearms were found on that scene. A 17-year-old accused is charged for this homicide. August 4th, 3000 block of Pleasant Grove in Holmes. The victim in this case was at the barber shop when a disagreement with the accused started inside, then spilled outside where the shooting happened. The witnesses and others in the area left the scene and never called 911. The shooting was reported by a citizen who thought that the victim needed medical help nearly an hour later. LPD spent the following days attempting to contact known witnesses who refused to cooperate. Out of everyone inside and outside at the time, we did find some cooperative witnesses. The 17-year-old suspect was identified as of 12:30 later that day, the following day, and is in custody. The case is being presented to the prosecutor's office for charges, and if authorized, will be presented to a judge the following day. Overall, a significant progress at all of these scenes from a police perspective anyway. We have faced lack of cooperation from the parties involved, both victims and witnesses, in these cases. We also saw a pattern of multiple firearms being used and involved. There is the belief that 2 of the shootings were connected, but none of the homicides were. Groups like Advanced Peace were present at the scenes and at the hospital to help, and has been proven to be very beneficial in these cases. As you can tell by the descriptions that I've gone through today, our gun problem still exists in this city, in this state, in this country, and we have yet to fully get our hands around it. For those that choose to publicly criticize law enforcement efforts and mayor's efforts to gain political capital, I can tell you this: you are doing nothing but being divisive. What you're saying in the media and on social media is doing nothing to help the problem. And oh, by the way, we're hiring. So if you think you're brave enough to do what our law enforcement officers do by putting your life at risk every day, let's go. Our partnerships with the local, state, and federal levels, if you can see here, have attacked this problem relentlessly in the last 2 years. We don't take these incidents lightly, and we would obviously do whatever we can to prevent these incidents from happening. But we cannot stop them all. The men and women of the Lansing Police Department work tirelessly to stop and solve these crimes. They work overnight, weekends, holidays. That means nothing to these people because they don't stop on these cases until the leads run cold. I understand these are frustrating times. We had a very positive start to 2023, and we are continuing to do that, have that trend until last week. It's frustrating for you. It's frustrating for me. Imagine, I'm in charge of the city's safety, and it's frustrating to have a week like we had last week when we've done so good for so long. We've lost lives and several others were hurt. So I'm here today to say this very loud and very clear. If you are in the city of Lansing and you want to carry a gun illegally, use a gun for criminal activity, or use a gun to solve conflict, be ready. I have the backing of the mayor, I have the backing of city council, I have the backing of our clergy, our local and state federal prosecutors, and the community. We will find you, we will arrest you. The Ingham County Prosecutor and the United States Attorney's Office will charge you, and you will be held accountable. We have solved 3 homicides in 6 days, and the prosecutor has made it very clear that his office will charge you appropriately. We are navigating gun violence epidemic that is not unique to Lansing. I think we all know that. For those of you like me and the mayor who are tired of this unnecessary violence, if you know something, you need to say something. If you see something, you need to say something. We cannot do this alone. On that, I will turn it over to Prosecutor Dwayne.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to extend my deepest condolences and support to the families who lost loved ones this week to gun violence. As the county prosecutor, I'm upset and saddened that I have to stand before you today to address the increase in gun violence in Lansing over the past week. This is unacceptable. Our community must come together to combat it. I want to thank Mayor Shore for providing the resources and funding to the Lansing Police Department to address the increase in gun violence, as well as providing funding to advance peace, to interrupt and prevent gun violence in our community. I want to thank Chief Sosby, Lansing Police Department command staff, detectives, patrol officers, medical personnel who have spent countless hours investigating these crimes, treating those injured, and apprehending the suspects who have alleged to have committed these violent crimes. How many more times are we going to have to hear about a young adult being murdered in our city? How many more times am I going to have to meet with the parents of the loved one, crying in my office, asking why? How many more times will the parents of the accused have to attend court distraught, knowing that their child may spend a majority of their life in prison? This has to stop. We are watching our youth kill one another each and every day. Gun violence is the leading cause of death for our children. As a community, we cannot simply stand by and watch. We have to come together to resolve this crisis. This must be a collaborative effort among law enforcement, community leaders, civic programs, our schools, our mental health providers, our faith-based community, neighbors, parents, brothers, sisters, and friends. It's time to help heal our community and move forward together. We all can and must do better. As your prosecutor, I assure you that I will do whatever I can under the law to hold both youthful and adult offenders accountable for gun violence and murder. While the law cannot bring back the victims of gun violence to their families, we can hold those who choose to use a gun to take a life or injure another accountable for their actions. This is our community. This is our home. The violence we've witnessed over the last week is not what I want our community to be known for. My office is committed to working with our community partners to prevent gun violence, hold accountable those who commit violent acts, and improve the public safety for all of our citizens. Thank you for your time.
Violent crime overall has been in a decrease up until this week. And almost the only thing that was increased so far in '23 was a property crime, was a vehicle theft. So violent crime as a whole has been down. Our philosophy is to educate, encourage, then enforce. That is been my philosophy since day one, and the mayor supported that. So I don't want my officers out there wrangling up the children, our youth at night. I want there to be some education, some alternatives for them to go to and not be out on the streets, and maybe some encouragement to not use violence as a solve-all.
If I haven't sent a clear message, the message will be sent today that I will charge you as an adult if you're a youthful offender. I will look at your prior history, I'll look at what occurred, and I will charge you as an adult. And if you're convicted, you'll be doing time in prison. Thank you.
In our estimation, the best thing we can do is do what we're doing today, and that is link up with all agencies to help prevent these type of things. Early education, dealing with young families, young children. We've got to reverse the gun culture. We have a gun culture in our society. And the younger we get to these families and young people, I think we'll be a lot more successful. And of course, us linking together, it's going to take the village. It takes us all. And so, of course, with the faith community, we pray, but we also believe in action. And action is what we're doing today, linking up with all of these various groups to try to mitigate this issue. There's some things we know we cannot prevent, but we must all work together to make this happen.
Advanced Peace launched in October of 2022, and our initial target has been the southwest side of Lansing. We have worked with our community to identify individuals who've been at the center of cyclical and retaliatory gun violence, and made a commitment to engage up to 15 individuals in a fellowship, an 18-month experience where we connect with them 3 times a day and expose them to evidence-based practices that are associated with the literature on what works. Estimations on the 15 fellows that we've engaged thus far is that the strategy is actually working. No implementation is 100% successful, but I can tell you over 90% of the fellows we've engaged have stopped and ceased from shooting individuals. Just this past week we had a meeting. We want to expand that strategy to the east side of Lansing. We have a meeting with the superintendent today to have a conversation around how we build that presence within our high schools in the city. And so Advanced Peace is a part of the community's ecosystem that you see before you, and we're doing our best to engage community, recruit community folks who are connected with individuals who have guns in their hands and are making decisions to shoot, and trying our best to get them to change their thinking, their behaviors to make this community safer. Yeah, we don't know everything. We do have focus groups with our youth. We know that youth build guns now. They order parts online. We know that youth modify guns to make them automatic. We know that youth have access to weapons through illegal and legal means, and so we're having conversations about that. And the term was just used. We have a culture of gun carry in our community. We're trying to understand what it means for the youth who are living in society today, right? And so I have 2 sons. I have conversations with them. They're fearful. And so one of their strategies is I need to have a gun, and I'm talking to them about making the right decision. And so I'm glad we're having these discussions, but I'm not a youth anymore. I'm 51 years old, and I need to understand what it means to live in Lansing and be between the ages of 13 and 21 and make sure we work to address those concerns. I was just talking to Chief Bacchus today. We're trying to identify what works based on the research and evidence. And so we're having conversations with the Department of Justice, Michigan State University, and other gun violence experts throughout the country to make sure that Lansing's doing everything that we can to deal with this matter.
We'll be talking to the superintendent. The superintendent is very aware and very involved, and we'll be talking to him as well. This was really targeted towards the last week or so, but in terms of school coming up and things like that, the superintendent is definitely aware and taking initiatives, so it's worth talking to him for the future.
The reality is many of the youth that we're targeting at the center of this gun violence epidemic are not really connected to any pro-social networks. And our neighborhood change agents are now engaging them 3 times a day. We eat with them, we travel with them, we talk to them, we mentor them, we take them to life skills classes. But as you know, that's only a small percentage of the time throughout their day and their week. And so typically when we're not with them, all the messages that they hear are not the messages they hear from us. They're very negative and they're very retaliatory. And so what we've been able to do is get into the ears of many of these youth and get them to think about different ways to deal with conflict resolution. Sometimes it's just call me and let's get out of the city for a couple of days, have a conversation. Sometimes it's thinking about what's going to happen after you make this decision. They've not thought about that many times. They're thinking about the immediate time that they're dealing with this particular conflict. And so just working through conversation and sharing other opportunities. Some of our youth don't believe that they can walk the city and be safe. They would like to have a job, but they believe if I'm working, I'll be in a place 8 hours and somebody might know where I'm working and come shoot me. So we're trying to get them out of the city and get them employed. And so if you can imagine, we're helping them explore all types of options that they have never explored before, and they're taking advantage of those options now.
I would add, and I've had conversations with some of the change agents. Again, they do a great job. But when you talk to Terrence Cooper with PRAY, People Ready Activating Youth, somebody mentioned that the event at Logan Square, Advanced Peace was there. That is true. So when something happens, you talk about not retaliating, they will go, these folks who have lives, right? They're not doing this 24/7. They will go at night, at midnight, and they'll show up when a shooting happens, and they'll talk to the folks who are affected. You could have a whole family at Sparrow Hospital, and the change agents will go and will calm the situation, and they have prevented retaliation shootings using the techniques that they were taught that they use during the day to show up at a time when they're not supposed to be there, and to get with the individuals and the families and say, let's calm this down. We have talked to Sparrow Hospital about getting some of the change agents access so they can get into the rooms and they can calm the situation down. They can de-escalate the situation. It is definitely working, and we saw that for 4 months without a homicide. We saw no retaliations. This week they're working double time, and we're trying to get them more help. We're trying to look at resources. Delisa Fontaine is here. She's with our gun violence task force. We looked at all of these factors. We have some money that we're going to put in to try and beef up those efforts. But when you hear Terrence, who's exhausted the next morning because he's calling me and saying, I was up until 3 a.m. convincing people, don't go back out and retaliate and shoot. Everything that Paul and MPHI, they're teaching these change agents, they're teaching the fellows, it's working. Is it 100%? No, but it's working.
Mayor, I'll just add to that. The shooting we just had this past Friday, we were together having dinner, debriefing this week. We leave dinner, the shooting happens on Holmes Road. And one of our NCAs was there for 5 hours that night dealing with that matter until all the crowd dispersed. And the very next day, spent another 2 hours with the family that was impacted. 8 hours, almost 8 hours and 24 hours dealing with a response to gun violence in our community.
And our change agents, they know these folks. These are not, it's not me. They know these folks, so they can get in and have those conversations. So, all right, I think we have to call it a day, but thank you all for being here. Thank you for taking the time at the last minute. Thank you for everybody up here, and we'll keep you in the loop. Thanks, everyone.